Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to be making a replacement for cream of mushroom soup, as in the canned stuff that a lot of recipes for casseroles and different things take. And it's super easy and quick. And I'm going to be doing this all from, well, most of it all from food storage. And so I'm going to show you how I do this. This is the same, well, my recipe changes all the time. I just throw it together. It's not always a cream of mushroom soup. It's usually just a white gravy, and that's basically all it is. And once you have a basic white gravy recipe down, you can use it to do anything from macaroni and cheese to biscuits and gravy to making a tuna noodle casserole. Today what I'm going to be doing is I have some leftover chicken, because, you know, like I say, I always get the chicken, a whole organic chicken. We cook it up one night, eat it off of that. Then I use the leftovers to make several different dinners throughout the rest of the week. So tonight I'm going to be making kind of a casserole dish that I'm just going to be throwing together. I'm making it up on the fly using vegetables and chicken. I don't know if I'm going to use pasta or not, but I'm going to be using some organic cheese and my sauce I'm going to be making right here, which is basically, again, the cream of mushroom soup replacement. And I hope you don't get too frustrated with me for those who like precise ingredients, because when I do this, I just throw it together. I really don't measure other than using my hands. But part of the reason I want to do it this way for you is to show everyone, especially if you're new to cooking things from scratch like this, that it's really easy. You don't have to have precise measurements for something like this. So let's get started. Okay, so right here in this pan, I have about a tablespoon or so of melted butter. Again, I just cut off a chunk and threw it in there. I didn't measure it. And what you want to use this for is if you're going to, let's say you want to sort of brown or caramelize a little bit some onions or whatever. I don't typically do that, but this is where what you're gonna want to do if you're gonna do it that way. And so what I might do is throw in, let's say my dehydrated onions, and I'll put a tablespoon or so of those in. And today I'm going to be tossing in some of my dehydrated zucchini from last summer from my garden. And then what you can do is you can put this back onto your cook sauce and just sort of brown that stuff a little bit if you want in the butter. I'm not going to do that today. We're just going to go ahead and move on to the next step. So I've got my whisk here. I'm going to go ahead and whisk that around in there. And if you prefer to have a more smooth sauce without chunks in it, then just leave out that and go with your granulated things, you know, like your granulated garlic, which I'll be putting about a tablespoon of that in. And same thing with the onion. You can leave out the diced onion and you can put in granulated onion. Okay, and I'm going to get back to some more of these later. Let's go ahead and add in some liquid. So today I'm going to be making my sauce using some of my stored whole milk powder. I'll link to this below. This is, as far as price and quality, this is the best I found so far for us. And, you know, to be able to get whole milk that's non-GMO and all that kind of stuff. So you can get this on Subscribe and Save on Amazon. But if you have a good source like Whole Foods, you might be able to find a good powdered milk to stock up on. But I love this. It's in a foil pouch. Again, I get it on Subscribe and Save and I just stock it away. So I'm going to be using 2 cups of water. Typically, again, I don't even measure this, but since I'm using the powdered milk, I'm going to measure this out. Usually I'll just pour milk in there and don't even measure it at all. Now, when you're using powdered milk, you want your water to be hot or warm at least. But since I'm going to be putting this on the stove and cooking it anyway, I'm just putting the rainwater in there, just room temperature. And don't worry when you add your powdered milk. And so I'm doing, by the way, a 1/3 cup of powdered milk for each cup of water. And just go ahead and stir it a little bit. Or you can just put in 2 cups of milk, you know, just straight milk, whatever kind of milk you've got. I recommend going with the richest milk you have on hand. It's really not best to buy 2% or 1% fat milk anyway. If you're getting a good milk, you should be going whole milk. and getting all that good healthy fat from the milk in there. But that's actually mixing pretty well. Okay, so now if you want to make it even richer, what I recommend, you can get some whipping cream, or I like to stock up on the Organic Valley. This freezes well. I just take a carton like this, I'll buy it when it's on sale, buy several of them and just toss them in the freezer. But when you thaw them out, you want to shake them really good before you start using it. You can pour a little bit of that in. That's probably about a 1/3 cup or so. And that will just give it a little more richness, but I don't typically do that, especially if I already have butter in there and the whole milk. It just, again, depends on how creamy and rich you want it and what you're using it in. And oh, by the way, this basic white sauce or white gravy recipe I also use in making fettuccine. I just change up the spices and herbs that I put in there according to how I'm using it. So anyway, I did put in the garlic and the onion. And today I'm going to be using some sage. Now if I'm going for an Italian dish, I use basil and oregano. So I put a pinch of sage in, and I'm going to put in a pinch of thyme, because that's more the flavor I'm looking at with the chicken, the cheesy chicken casserole thing I'll be throwing together. And then of course you're going to want about a teaspoon of salt. About a teaspoon. I'm going to use black pepper in this today. Usually when I'm doing more of an Italian type thing like the fettuccine, I'll use a red pepper. But black pepper, oh, I'm going to put at least a good teaspoon or so. That's probably about a teaspoon and a half, so that would be half a tablespoon. Okay, and then stir that in. Now, here's where we come in with the mushrooms. So if you remember, I did a couple of different videos about the Mother Earth products and how I really, really enjoy their freeze-dried mushrooms. And I mentioned it again in a more recent this and that video. And what I had here, after I filled up all my jars with the freeze-dried mushrooms, I had mostly powder and just bits of stuff in it. And I'm just going to use this as is in my sauce. Now, if you don't want chunks, and you have a bunch of chunks in there, simply take these and put them in your coffee grinder. I have 2 different electric coffee grinders. I run off my solar power. That one is strictly for coffee, and then the other one I use for powdering stuff up, like when I make the zucchini powder. I have a couple of videos about zucchini powder and using it for making bread. Oh, so good in a yeast bread and other things. But anyway, I'm going to dump, I better measure it out. Usually I just dump it in there. I'm going to put in, 2/3 cup of the freeze-dried mushrooms. It's kind of half powdered and half chunks. Okay, now that might be enough with all that stuff to thicken up your sauce without needing to add flour. But if it doesn't, what I do is I start cooking it first. If it doesn't start thickening up like it should, then take about a 1/4 cup of buckwheat flour if you're doing gluten-free or any other kind of whole grain flour, and mix it with a little bit of milk till it's smooth, and then add it into your sauce to get it to thicken up. But I'm going to start with it just like this. Last time I made it, I did go ahead and throw in just a little bit of flour. But today I'm going to try just doing the mushrooms and the other stuff. Now, one more thing I wanted to add in that I put in almost everything that I cook for dinners, and that is my mixed greens blend. And if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me talk about this until you probably get tired of hearing it. But this is all the different goodies that I grow in my garden, and I get a lot of, like, kale, even carrot tops, red mustard, dandelion leaves, plantain, borage leaves, all kinds of good stuff. Stinging nettle is another big one I put in there. And so I like to throw that into just about everything, every kind of sauce, gravy, soup, casserole, whatever it is I'm going to make. Even when I'm making some kind of meat patty, whether it be for hamburgers or, the breakfast sausage, I'll put this in there because it's just more ways we can get those good greens into our diet. And I dehydrate up a lot of this stuff every summer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this over to the wood stove and put it on there and let it start getting thick. All right, so this has been cooking for several minutes, and though it has thickened up some, It's just not thickening up the way it should. So I am going to go ahead and need to add the flour. And one flour I highly recommend to try, and this is great for everyone, gluten-free or not, is the buckwheat flour. It has a nice flavor and it works really good for thickening up sauces and gravies and different things like that. So I'm just gonna, because I want to keep it as rich as possible because of the type of dinner I'm making, I'm gonna go ahead and use some more half and half. So I got about a 1/4 cup of the buckwheat flour, and I'm just gonna pour the half and half over it. You can use just milk, you can use water, whatever it is. You just want it to be cold when you go to do this step. And this can apply for anytime you're making a gravy and it's not thickening up. You already had the flour in there, because you always want to add your flour when it's cold before you start cooking it. And if it's like, wow, this isn't thickening up like it should, then go ahead and take like another tablespoon or so of your flour and mix it with cold milk or water or whatever. And even broth, you know, cold broth would work well. And make sure you blend it smooth. This is really a small bowl for this. But you want to do that first before, you don't want to just throw the flour into the sauce. Now I've done that before with some. Buckwheat is one of those that tends to blend well even when it's already hot. But you're always safest to blend it in a small bowl first and then pour it in. And then put it back on your heat source, and then you should see in just a couple of minutes it should thicken right up. So I'll be back when this is ready. All right, so there it is. It only took a few minutes of cooking it and it's nice and thick. And I don't know if you can see just how thick that is. And you know, you can get this as thick as you want. Typically when you're using like a can of cream of mushroom soup in any kind of recipe, you're usually adding something to it anyway. But you got to remember this is hot too, and so it's going to thicken up even more and congeal a bit when it gets cold. So this is actually the perfect consistency for what I need it for. So like I said, what I'm going to do is use some leftover chicken, and I think I'm going to nix the pasta. I'm going to go right to just using cauliflower and some other veggies in there, because cauliflower makes a nice pasta replacement, especially if you're doing like a gluten-free kind of thing. And I'm going to pour the sauce on there. I'm probably going to add in some more other vegetables, like some green beans that I have frozen up from the garden, and the chicken, and some organic cheese to shred, or actually I crumble it. I like to freeze the cheese and then I just crumble it right up and put it in there. It's the easiest way to do. You don't have to shred it, you don't have to grate it, and just keep it simple. So all you need for a basic white sauce is just your milk and your something to thicken it with, some type of flour, whether it be gluten-free or non-gluten-free. The great thing about a gravy is it doesn't matter what kind of flour you use, it's going to work. Some work a little better than others, and like I said, the buckwheat flour works the best for me in my personal opinion. Rice flour works great too, so does oat flour. Just whatever suits your needs. I try to go with something that's as healthy as possible. And then you can take that and run with it, add your dehydrated freeze-dried mushrooms and make it a cream of mushroom soup replacement, or take it or turn it into macaroni and cheese. And I do have a video on how I make macaroni and cheese, or at least one way that I do it. I'll go ahead and link to that video right up here. And yeah, so many things you can do with this once you have the basic idea. Super easy. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.